might as well say what you got to say before you're dead.
And I encourage you to watch it once, twice, 3 times. I love when politicians say things.
Let me tell you something. You all think we stupid, you know.
If you take offense to it personally, that's your business.
And it's the number one watch show. That's so. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Citizens Review. This is a special edition of Citizens Review today. As you're aware, we used to be in the business of interviewing politicians a lot, but we sort of backed away from it for several reasons. One, for fear of interrupting our good content. Two, for the politician fear of actually coming on the show and answering questions. And three, just to make sure that we preserve an environment where it is actually a citizen's review, as opposed to a citizen getting information from a politician to then find out what we can do. But this is an exception, and an exception that I think we should make because, one, I'm impressed with this politician, and two, I think she has something to say. And everybody, when I say she, is probably trying to figure out who it is that I'm talking about. Well, it's no other than the Deputy Leader of the FNM, Loretta Butler Turner. She is a hot topic, talked about a lot. She's been the subject of my Instagram, my Twitter, my Facebook, in memes, in any manner of discussion, tabletop discussion, barroom discussion, for either her green eyes or her strong hand. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have Loretta Butler Turner on the show today. We are going to have a full interview. We're going to talk about any number of issues up to and including the party of which she is deputy leader and herself a mother, a wife, and a person, Loretta Butler Turner, the lady with roots from Long Island who now represents those people. So, we'll be back after these messages. If you have comments on this show, please send them to our Facebook, our Twitter, put a picture up on Instagram. Either way, get in touch with us. Let us know your feedback so we can let Ms. Butler Turner know how Bahamians feel about her representation here on the show today. We'll be right back after these messages. Citizens Review with Loretta Butler Turner, the Deputy Leader of the FNM, and some say the next Prime Minister. We'll see. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Citizens Review. You see, I have the Deputy Leader of the FNM, Loretta Butler Turner, in studio, and I also have my red book. And this red does not represent FNM. You know I don't support none of these parties. It represents the book where I put my questions so that we could talk to sensible people. Thank you very much for coming. As I said before, you are usually considered the female member of the House of Assembly with the most testicular fortitude. Now, I'm not sexist, and I recognize that that could be offensive, but you're here today, and that means a lot to me, and in particular, I'm sure the people who watch Citizens Review, because there are a lot of politicians who are afraid to come on this show. So, why come?
Well, first of all, it is a little offensive, or
Yes.
greatly offensive. I think that Citizens Review, from what I've heard and the few episodes that I've actually seen, has truly, truly propelled itself into a different aura from many of the talk shows. People really enjoy your forthrightness and your intelligence, so I think it's a wonderful thing to be in the presence of intelligence.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I wonder if you try to soften me up before this interview.
Why not?
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming. Now, let's get into the thick of it. The FNM decided to leave the House of Assembly, and you decided to vacate on certain grounds. I don't want to preempt what it is that you have to say. Why exit the House of Assembly on a critical debate? What's the issue?
Well, as you know, the background of the argument is very simple. The Speaker, after a bit of prodding from the governing side, members on the governing side, determined, much after quite some time, that what Dr. Minnis, our leader, had said was something that actually impugned the character of those on the governing side. Up to that point, before he was briefed by the governing members, it was fine. There was no retraction required. It was not until some of them stood up and spoke to the exception. And then, of course, this rule and this whole issue of having the remarks expunged and then requesting that the leader of the opposition apologize. And so that is the basis for the whole argument. Obviously, any debate that takes place in Parliament is very important, especially as it relates to the legislation. It is the people's business. It would not be our desire to leave at any time. But given the circumstances and the fact that everything seemed to have been predicated and already arranged, you notice the Speaker spoke from a script. And, you know, normally these things are done spontaneously. So we imagined that that was going to happen in any event. We'd already looked at the various scenarios. And one of the things we determined that either he would let Dr. Minnis speak yesterday or he would name him. And since he determined that it was best to name him because Dr. Minnis would not have retracted, and we certainly agreed with that position, essentially, he then did something even more erroneous. He asked to have a motion to name
which is
a member. Not only inappropriate, is unnecessary, is not a part of the rules of the House. So almost, it seems like he wanted culpability with not just him doing it, but with the government side to say, yes, okay, we've got your back. The Speaker has to be independent, he has to be nonpartisan, and he has to rule in the best interest of the House. I think that in and of itself created an even bigger issue of partisanship.
Okay. What about the issue? Because I've also heard that there's a challenge to the Speaker's competency when it comes to the fact that he withdrew the statement from the record. And then he himself, in naming Dr. Minnis, after calling for the motion, of course, introduced the statement back to the record and then asked that it be withdrawn.
I think that one of the things that when you have a job to do, you have to know the parameters within which you are to perform. You also have to know the rules, first and foremost. I think it would be helpful if the Speaker became better acquainted with all the nuances of the rules of the House. And these rules basically are taken from Mays, which is used all over the world in whatever type of meeting setting that you're using. But these were adapted especially by the former PLP government. So I would think that, you know, he would have a much better understanding of these rules. But I would admonish him because the reality is when people perceive that there is a biasness, you then start painting your own self into a corner of being unfair, even on those occasions when one is fair. And so I think he's going to have to truly examine the way that he runs the House, because there is a clear perception out there that there is a lot of bias going on.
Now this is your second term as a member of Parliament.
Yes.
So you've experienced the House from the other side. Would you say that a Speaker is ever not biased?
No, to be very honest, I think some are more, nonpartisan than others.
Because they naturally come out of the belly of a party.
Absolutely. And maybe that is something that we need to look at constitutionally as well. And I think it would be a very good move to have someone that is not beholden to either of the political sides. But be that as it may, this is where we are today. And I think that the level of impartiality, you look at the Milo Butlers, where both sides, and I'm talking about my uncle, Milo Jr., where they said, oh, he was a really good speaker because, he tried to be very fair.
Yeah.
You look at an Arlington Butler, I'm sorry, they're both butlers, but,
Yeah.
those are the ones that would come to my mind
Yeah.
in contemporary times.
As fair speakers.
Absolutely. And so I think that, even to go back and examine some of what would have happened historically would be very useful for this speaker.
Okay, so we've talked about the speaker. Let's talk about the F&M's role in this. Is there evidence to support what was claimed by Dr. Minnis? Because the challenge to that is, one, Dr. Minnis didn't present the evidence. Number two, Edison Key, a member of your own party, says that there is no evidence. If you don't have it, then we move on. Apologize and move on. And this is the Prime Minister we're talking about. He's not just making a claim against anybody. He's making a claim against the Prime Minister, which could be seen as highly politically motivated. What say the F&M to that? Is there evidence? And if there is, what is it?
We are satisfied among our parliamentary group that we definitely have evidence to substantiate the coziness of this relationship, and probably
this is Nygaard and Christie.
Peter Nygaard and Prime Minister Christie, and of course the administration, which you would have seen on many of the members of this administration, who we see that seem to have a very close relationship with Mr. Nygaard. And we're satisfied that we do have enough information to share with the Bahamian people.
Well, why not present that information in Parliament when it is requested, so that there is no one kicked out of the House of Assembly?
Yesterday, it was the leader's intent to lay the affidavit once he would have said that he did not apologize.
Okay. And that was preempted by the Speaker.
Absolutely.
Moving forward. Okay. What evidence is there that you can share with us?
The leader and our group have been presented with an affidavit. I didn't watch the proceedings yesterday afternoon after we left, but there is an affidavit that claims certain things in that document, which some of it has been made public thus far.
Okay. Can you tell us what things? What does the affidavit imply? What does it tell us?
It implies, first of all, that there has to be a payback for the large amount of money that has been donated to the PLP party and the Prime Minister.
And this affidavit is Mr. Nygaard speaking?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a bundle of exhibits that fall within the affidavit of Peter Nygaard.
And it's in regards to a case in the U.S. or in Canada and the Bahamas?
It's something that was done right here in the Bahamas in our jurisdiction.
Okay.
It actually has the seals from the court in the Bahamas.
Okay. And Mr. Nygaard in this claims that he expects some sort of return.
No, I think that when you actually look at the entire issue globally with regards to the videotape, Nygaard takes the Bahamas back. We've now got our Bahamas back. The interactions, the discussions back and forth with the Prime Minister, referring to Peter to even get funding for one of our artistic icons, Mr. Gus Cooper, for his medical treatment. It just seems to be something where it's one hand greasing the other. And so that essentially is what we're seeing. And I think that is the case that the leader of the opposition is building on.
Yeah. So it's similar to this sort of coziness that we would have seen from Shane Gibson with Anna Nicole Smith, him having been the minister in charge who granted her residency, that kind of inappropriately close relationship.
Yes, and we believe that even in politics, while and I said this in my contribution, that political parties do by and large depend on the largesse of individuals and companies to fund political campaigns. But I think that when you see this blatant affront to a people and talking that, well, because I've contributed so much, basically I've taken the Bahamas back. I think that in and of itself is a slap in the face to us as Bahamians who don't really know what's going on behind the scenes, what deals are being made, and what type of things are being done on our behalf in the name of politics. I think we've got to be very careful with that perception.
There are a lot of people who find the F&M's position objectionable for a reason. And that reason is there's a situation with the Aga Khan and Earl DeVoe. There's a pattern in our politics of the F&M and the PLP at the highest levels, leaders, doing the same kind of thing over and over. Why is it so objectionable
Well,
now?
first of all, with the Aga Khan, how else do you get to Belle Island except by helicopter or boat?
But is it appropriate for the minister responsible to take the owners of the island's helicopter?
Well, I think that, there certainly could be a case made for it.
Okay.
And I don't know of any sort of financial kickbacks besides going there to actually witness.
But it's, as you stated before, it's a little too
percep-
cozy.
It's a little too cozy.
Yeah.
And I guess in that instance you might want to look at that. But the fact is, we have being promoted something that comes to the Parliament of the Bahamas, legislating that we are going to have a medical tourism out of this.
Yeah.
And Mr. Nygaard wanting to have that facility at Nygaard Key or some part of it,
That is
and the
us.
researchers and what have you, and who's going to be the beneficiary of this?
Yeah.
I mean, you look at. I mean, it's almost like comparing apples and oranges, or apples and sapodillas.
Yeah.
But the reality is this: the Aga Khan owns a private island.
Yeah.
He needed to dredge to get there, and obviously the environmental impacts had to be made.
Yeah.
I thought it was important that, as a minister, that when he comes back to Parliament to Cabinet to brief us,
Yeah.
that we know exactly what it is we're looking at. I don't think it's the same thing.
Yeah.
I really don't, because what you have happening right now is, if Mr. Nygaard is in fact the individual or the company that is going to be the beneficiary of this large amount of cash-producing medical tourism
Yeah.
that can come into the Bahamas, that's a very huge payback for someone. And we feel, this is what the leader's position is, that while stem cell research is very progressive, is probably a very good thing for the Bahamas, that we should not allow ourselves to be pushed into the corner with this one benefactor
Yeah.
to a political organization that seems or appears to have made this agreement before the election.
Okay. Stem cell research was approved by Dr. Hubert Minnis as Minister of Health. There are a lot of people who ask, was this the issue to raise as a problem? Because, like you said, you don't object to stem cell research. Dr. Minnis gave the first approvals, and now it's coming up as an issue. Are we objecting to stem cell research now because it's politically motivated? Are we saying, oh, there's too much infrastructure necessary because it's a convenient argument? Was that infrastructure necessary when Dr. Minnis first approved stem
No,
cell
let-
research?
let me-
There's
let
a
me-
lot of confusion
There
there.
is. I think the position initially with Dr. Minnis has been this whole issue of perception that there's a payback to Peter Nygaard.
Okay.
And I think that is the basis on which he objected.
Okay.
And there was this whole issue about me not being on the same page as my party. And essentially we are on the same page, and we've discussed it to great lengths. The reality is stem cell research, stem cell therapy
Yeah.
is what we understand was actually going on under Dr. Minnis. I don't think there's been any harvesting or of cells in the Bahamas.
Okay.
They were actually just giving therapy, to the best of my knowledge, for the licenses that were granted. That means that whatever cells they were using were brought in.
Okay.
And so that's the first clarity. The next thing is the research, which requires the intellectual, the scientific, the monitoring, the non-embryonic stem cells. All of that is what I think raised a concern with regards to, okay, how are we going to be harvesting these? Who are the players that are going to be involved?
Yeah.
And then when both the Prime Minister and Nygaard confirmed that they had come together to determine that Mr. Nygaard would make available
that's
to
the point of contention.
That's the point of
Okay.
contention.
So the move from just therapy, which is bringing in cells,
Right.
to research,
Right.
which requires much more infrastructure.
Right.
And then also the fact that we're moving to research, and the principal is going to be Peter Nygaard, who there is obviously a more than comfortable relationship
Absolutely.
with the PLP.
That is the
Okay.
position.
That's a bit clearer.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if all that is true, but that's clearer.
This is my full understanding of it, because obviously, if I'm going to stand to believe in something,
Yeah.
I questioned, and we did so in our caucus, I questioned Dr. Minnis, what is the position on these licenses that were granted during our tenure?
Yeah.
What are they actually operational? Because, when I stand up, or any of us stand up, we need to be clear, because that would not have been in my portfolio. It would not have been in Mr. Grant's portfolio.
Yeah.
And of course, the newcomers that we have would know nothing
They
about
didn't
it.
have any
So it was
portfolio.
very, very important for us to establish, why are we defending or why are we not defending? And this is what was explained. And so I think essentially that Bahamians will understand it's nothing about not having therapy for Bahamians. It is a very expensive undertaking
Yeah.
to even have stem cell therapy. But, I am also of the understanding that what is going on right now at the University of Miami is purely research with therapy. So a lot of the recipients are not actually having to pay for this.
Understood.
But once you are paying clients, it's an astronomical amount of money in other parts of the world
Yeah.
to have this therapy done. So for them to even imply that this is something that the everyday Bahamian
Is gonna
would be
benefit
able to
from.
avail themselves to is just a total untruth.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, they're going to be doing the research the way that they're doing at the University of Miami, where basically people are being used, I think, as guinea pigs,
Yeah.
to determine the outcome.
Let's talk about Edison Key. Edison Key says he doesn't support it. He's not leaving the house. He'll be there. The people from South Africa will be represented. And he's a member of your party. That does not look good.
It doesn't. And we can tell you, I can definitely say that, it is very sad, because one of the things that would have been very useful is for Edison to have come in so that he can hear the arguments that we have as a caucus.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think he would have just flown in yesterday morning.
Okay.
And so he did not know all that precipitated in our discussions. And he had made it very clear from the start that he does support stem cell.
Yes.
And that
He
that
told
was
me that
yes,
personally.
yes, and that is what he was going to be doing. So to be clear with you, it was sad that even though he had not attended our caucus, he did not choose to support the leader in this regard. And it does raise a lot of questions, not just for Edison, but even the bigger picture for the people that he was elected to represent under the banner of the Free National Movement. So it's certainly something that we as a party will have to deal with and look at, a little closer.
You said last night at your meeting, which was well attended, and there were people who speculated that maybe Dr. Minnis couldn't get the kind of crowd, but he did, that if there are people that are scared to stand with you, and there are a lot of people who think that you're talking about Edison Key. Is that a comment to Edison Key?
No. We actually got tweets, we got Facebook comments, we got different type of text comments, people saying, listen, we're with you, we have your back, but we're afraid to come out there. We either work for government or we're dependent on government.
Okay.
We do not want to be victimized.
Yeah, these are the people that call Citizens Review privately every day.
Yeah, they're
and
very
give us
afraid.
information.
Yeah, they're very afraid. And in a democratic country, we have a very rich democracy that historically dates more than 200 years.
Yeah.
And for us to go back to this type of fare, where Bahamians feel threatened in their own country, I think that speaks to the essence of also a part of what we did yesterday in terms of not being able to have the freedom of speech or the freedom of association or the freedom to vote whatever you wish to vote. Why do you have to pretend to be something that you aren't just to sustain your job? I think that's a very frightening thing for Bahamians.
On that note, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about leadership, F&M, the vision, the next steps, and also about the democracy. We'll be right back after these messages. ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Citizens Review. We're here with Loretta Butler Turner. We have a very interesting interview. I think it's going rather well, and so we're going to continue.
Thank you.
There's a picture. Shane Gibson says he has a picture with you. I don't have this picture as I put it up on the screen. Is there such a picture with you and Mr. Nygaard?
No,
Is it?
it's the Shane Gibson held a picture up on his tablet yesterday
Yeah.
in the House of Assembly with both he and I standing up with funeral hymn sheets in our hands.
Okay.
It could have been anywhere in the world.
Okay.
It doesn't.
What did he claim?
He claimed that I had said I'd never been to Nygaard's residence. This is what I'm told. I wasn't in the house,
Yeah.
but the picture has been posted to my page.
Okay.
So I was able to certainly comment on it. The reality is this. When I gave my contribution on stem cell, and I spoke about the perception of our relationships with people, benefactors, I said, you know, I don't know what the relationship is with Nygaard and Christie. I obviously have no relationship with him. But I did recall that when I was a minister in the Free National Movement government, I received an official invitation at my office, not a personal invitation, as I did many, many invitations, to attend a funeral service of Mrs. Nygaard. The invitation was sent from Mr. Peter Nygaard requesting my attendance at the funeral. And I questioned whether that was sent to me in my capacity as the Minister of Social Services or the fact that I'm from a funeral service background.
Yeah.
Either way, I accepted the invitation. A funeral, it's something I'm used to going to. It was not a problem. And the funeral, or the memorial service as it turned out, was held at a place on West Bay Street, just west of Orange Hill, called
Okay.
Viking Hill.
Okay.
And it was said to be the residence of Mrs. Nygaard. And persons who got up and gave tributes spoke about her residence and how she would swim every morning. So I think that Shane Gibson was being totally disingenuous. Not
As-
think, I
as
know.
is
I know
custom.
that he was being disingenuous in using this photograph to try and create a relationship
Yeah.
between Mr. Nygaard and myself. And the truth is, everyone that knows that if you go to Nygaard Key, everything is on camera.
Yeah.
If there was any such existence of such things, me
Relationship,
being with
yeah.
Mr. Nygaard, that would have been on YouTube by now.
Yeah.
I merely went to a funeral service, watched them inter Mrs. Nygaard's ashes into a wall at her residence.
Yeah.
I don't know who owns the residence. And I left.
What you can see at Nygaard Key, though, is Shane Gibson's brother serving barbecue.
Exactly. And you know, you will never see
Shane
any.
Gibson is one bold fella, yeah?
Absolutely. I've never, ever been to Nygaard Key. I have no relationship
Yeah.
with Mr. Nygaard. As a matter of fact, I think the only thing I was able to do was to wish him my sympathy that day.
Yeah. Okay. Just checking, you know, you got to clear up these pictures.
No, but
Shane
that's the
Gibson-
truth.
Shane Gibson is supposed to be a whole minister of government nowadays after he embarrassed the whole country eternally. Question. Leadership in the FNM. There is a sentiment that Dr. Minnis is not the man. Everybody talks about it, everybody says it, everybody knows it. It seems like the only persons who don't discuss it is FNM. So you're an FNM, the whole deputy leader. So we can talk about it
then
today.
everyone's not talking about it.
Maybe you're all just missing an action.
That's quite simple. Everyone's not talking about it.
Well, no, man. Everybody talking about it. Is he the guy? Is he going to be the kind of leader that the FNM needs going into the next election? Do you
Well, let me
think?
just say this. Dr. Hubert Minnis, on May the 26th of last year, was unanimously elected the leader of the opposition.
Yeah.
Certainly, there is nothing undemocratic about that process.
Yeah.
Every political party has a constitution which it must follow and adhere to. And within that constitution, you also know that there are conventions, as we had our one-day convention. And, you know, in the fullness of democracy, at conventions, anything can happen. But, you know, we have a leader. His name is Hubert Alexander Minnis. He's walking in the shadows and the footsteps of great leaders that have preceded him. People do a lot of comparatives And I think that, coming behind a person such as a Hubert Ingram, it is a very difficult act to follow.
Yeah.
So, in all fairness to Dr. Minnis, he is our leader. And the reality is, until such time that a convention sees fit to change either him, me, or anybody else for that matter, that stands.
Now,
And, there's no question about that.
let's go further then. There is an idea, and I've seen it perpetrated even on news media. I saw a news story where Dr. Minnis, commenting about you, said that even his 7-year-old grandchild could read what he wrote, and almost as saying that you didn't read it, it's like you don't get it.
I don't get it.
So people think that there is a rift.
I always have a dumb moment,
Yeah. Listen, I don't think that was one of your dumb moments. Is there a rift? Are you two getting along? Are you working together? And I don't want to hear about how you all two walk out together in solidarity. Real talk, you and Dr. Minnis, is it working out, or are you trying to be the boss?
It's a relationship, and I guess like many relationships, there are good days and there are bad days.
More good than bad?
Yesterday we had a really good day, we thought. And so, it's a relationship that's dynamic. And it's one that goes through, ups and downs like any other relationship. But the reality is this, despite our relationship, I think the most important thing is that we do believe in the same philosophy of the party and the ideology and the history. And I think that, above all else, has to prevail. And so it doesn't matter whether you and I, as persons on the same team, like each other or don't like each other. We have got to learn to work for the greater good. And that, I think, is the most important thing that both Dr. Minnis and I can do at this time.
There are a lot of people who think that you upstage Dr. Minnis. There are a lot of people who think that you want to be leader. You haven't said it. Is that so? Are you upstaging Dr. Minnis? Do you want to be Prime Minister?
I think that, when you compare our styles, especially in delivery, there seems to be, that's most of the commentary, I would think. A leader has to realize that, you're dealt a hand like a poker hand, and you've got to leverage the best that you can with that hand. And I think one of the things that we sometimes don't do is to use that to our advantage. I think that if as the leadership and the leader looks at the team, it would be very important to make sure that each member is giving of their best talent. I think that is probably the commentary you would hear. Maybe that, Loretta is a stronger speaker or something like that. But that goes without saying. I mean, I've been speaking all of my life. Dr. Minnis is very accomplished in his field as a medical doctor. And I don't think that public speaking and, that. I've also come from a political background. But at the end of the day, I think he's still being compared to others. And we must give him a chance. We must allow him to have that opportunity.
Let me ask, there's a growing sentiment amongst women that they want to see a woman in the office of the Prime Minister. Do you have interest in being Prime Minister?
I have an interest in being the best parliamentarian and server that I can be right now, politician. I think that we certainly, just as we are polarized as a political organization, I think women are realizing the strength that they have to make a change. And women would like to see not just one woman lifted up. I think they'd like to see more upliftment of women, more equality of women. And if that's the final frontier that women need to have to feel that they are equal, it won't be just for a Loretta Butler Turner or for any other woman for that matter. It would be something for womanhood in the Bahamas. And so with us having still today, politically and constitutionally, being disadvantaged in terms of equality, I think women are speaking to that. Women are becoming more vociferous in that regard. And I can tell you, they are a great voice. Not only are they a great voice, they make their voices heard, and I appreciate them because Bahamian women are definitely wanting to show that, you know, if you're not using my 50% of the population and our brain thrusts, then you are basically only achieving half of what you could achieve.
Absolutely. And then there is a strong sentiment that women have a lot more to offer than men have in the past. So maybe more than half.
Well, the reality is also, you know, you have to look at what is being used out there. Are we as women being fully utilized? You look at the makeup of our parliament today.
I don't think so.
You only have 3 women on the governing side out of 30 members, and on our side, you only have 1. And so that's nowhere near 50%. So we're actually, as a country, doing ourselves a disservice in not using the intellect of our 50% plus population, which is female.
And that population, which is turning out to be more educated, more stable, more financially secure. So arguably a better voice, arguably. There's plenty of men who will want to kill me for that, but it is what it is. The numbers speak to what they say.
I think men are becoming a lot more open to women as well in terms of achievements. I think if you were to look globally around the world and you see the amount of businesses and corporations that are now headed by women, you see their successes. You look right in our region at the countries that are doing very well with women leadership. I think it's not so much a gender issue, and we shouldn't make it a gender issue. I think the most important thing is that gender should become a non-issue. That if a woman is the best person, then let that not be the issue. Let it just be the person, the individual, okay? So that you're not saying, oh, well, you know, this is man over woman or woman over man. Let's just be gender neutral and determine that the best person for any given job, whether it is prime minister or whether it's the CEO or whether the president of COB, let's go with the best person that we have.
On top of that, I'm going to ask you a question. If possible, give me a yes or no answer. The F&M calls a convention prior to 2017 election. Does Loretta Butler Turner run for leader?
I would be very hard pressed to answer that question. I think that, you know, in my daily movement of what I do, I think that if people feel that a Loretta Butler Turner has the possibility and the ability for such a position, then they will have to make that known. I don't have plans. I don't plan to do anything. I just plan right now to be the best that I can be at what I am. If that opportunity presents itself, and that is something that the Bahamian people want, that the F&M wants, then of course I don't back down from what is wanted. Because sometimes people have to propel you to where you need to go. It's not a desire that I hold in my heart. You know, obviously when I got into politics, my desire was to serve. When I got there, I then became a minister. I thought I wanted to do that, and I thought I did that quite well. We're now in a position where we have a deficit, a huge deficit in Parliament, and I think that, you know, people get to see the other possibilities. And so certainly if that is something that my party wants and the majority of people want, I believe in democracy. I will embrace it. I will never cut myself off from any possibility. There is nothing in this world that we as human beings should not want to achieve. And so certainly, but is it my desire at this point? You know, not really.
Okay. Well, that's an answer. We'll be right back after these messages. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Citizens Review. I'm Aaron Ferguson, your host, and I'm sitting here with the lovely Loretta Butler Turner, the Deputy Leader of the F&M and also the MP for Long Island, the place where I am 3/4 from. My grandmother on my father's side On my father's side is a Turnquest, and my mother is a Smith, Knowles, and Deal.
You've got a lot
So
of
that's
Long Island. in
plenty
you.
Long Island. Now there's the Ferguson side,
Which is?
which is Acklands,
Okay.
some Exuma, they say.
Very good mix.
And then also the Francis side,
Very good mix.
which is the Bimini and the Berry Islands
Very
crew. Unfortunately, I think I related to Neil Ellis on that side, but
No,
I don't
no,
talk
he's a
it.
good, he's a good guy.
Yeah, you think so. we'll agree to disagree on that. So, Loretta Butler Turner,
Yes, sir.
you slapped a man in Parliament.
Not in Parliament.
Not in Parliament. On the steps?
In the precincts of the building of Parliament.
Okay, now see, that's what I said. You know, all that big talk. You slap a man in Parliament.
Okay, not in the chamber.
Yeah,
Not in the actual chamber.
Okay.
You're correct.
but you slapped him.
Yes, I did.
Okay, now, do you feel justified in slapping him or you're dead wrong?
No, I felt very justified. I think that one of the things, you talked about women and their rights. I think that one of the things in the Bahamas is a lot of people think they can take a lot of latitude with women. They describe us in very negative sense.
Politicians in particular.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, the whole thing about being the weaker vessel, about, you know, I was just embracing her. No, you're not invited to embrace anyone. You have got to respect the rules and the guidelines of proper decorum around individuals.
Yeah.
And we all have a space around us. When you invade that space,
Yeah.
not only are you moving into dangerous territory, but when you start talking foolishness
Yeah.
and literally grabbing that person so they can hear what you're saying, then of course, I think it's only fitting that the individual forget the players, forget that it was me, forget that it was Rollins. This is a man mistreating a woman, and she warns him to remove your hands, not once, but twice.
Yeah.
And he persists. He didn't expect it, and maybe that speaks to the sentiments of many of our men in the Bahamas who think that they have this latitude with every woman.
Is slapping him the appropriate response?
Well, in retrospect and in hindsight, I think we can all determine that, you know, violence is not the way to go in anything.
Yeah.
But, you know, the history of this relationship
Yeah.
with Dr. Rollins, in addition to all that had happened in the past, I had actually called him over one day and said, listen, I don't know what it is you're trying to prove, but you know you, I know your family. Can we just call a truce? Come on, let's shake on this and let's be over with all of this backbiting that's going on. Forgive me and I will forgive you.
Yeah.
And we did that. And I said, to make it even better, can you please give me a hug, sir? So you would think that this is behind us. And you look at this man who comes to Parliament, a political novice, not a dumb guy,
No.
not a, you know, quite an intelligent young
Yeah,
man.
well trained.
But yet wanting to get into this crazy mindset that he can just offend others. And so when he did that, you know, I thought he really had gone over the bounds, and knowing that I'd already asked him to let us just call a truce. I don't know what precipitated it.
Yeah. There are a lot of people who want to know what he said to you. What did he say?
I would not even, you know, repeat that. That is behind me, and I'm not going to go into it here.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that, you know, whatever he said, nobody should do that.
Yeah.
Nobody should say things. Nobody should treat anybody in that manner.
Let me ask this question. I spoke to a young man who said, and I quote, if that was me and a girl in school, not only would one of us get suspended or expelled from school, but there would definitely be serious repercussions.
And the repercussions really, by the laws of our land, would not have been against me.
Yeah.
It would have been against Dr. Rollins for assaulting me in the first place.
And you would have been technically defending yourself.
Yes, sir. Not technically. I was.
You were. Okay.
Legally.
I ain't no lawyer, so I ain't gonna fight you on that one. But you slap a man in Parliament.
But I realized the implication that went
Yeah.
out, and the next morning I went to the speaker without even conferring with my party and my colleagues.
Yeah.
I went to the speaker and I said to him, I said, you know, I've had time to think on this and to pray on this.
Yeah.
And I would like to have a few moments, please. Will you allow me that?
Yeah.
And then I got up and I made the apology. And, you know, people will say, but you didn't apologize to Rollins. And they would be correct.
Yeah.
Because if you feel violated and you feel that you are wronged, why would you apologize to that person?
Understood.
And so I apologize to those who I think are most impressionable and to those whom I might have offended the most.
Let me ask this. There are a lot of people who see your persona in Parliament as an aggressive one. They hear you making comments. You and Melanie Griffin sort of have a thing. You and Andre Rollins sort of have a thing. How do you feel like you've contributed to a sentiment amongst Bahamians that parliamentarians are just downright out of order?
I think that, you know, I have certainly done my part in that, and I would like to apologize to the Bahamian people if that's the perception that they take away. And what I've been attempting to do is to be more moderate in all of my undertakings and really biting my tongue to ensure that I don't get into those encounters. But there, you know, what people also need to understand about Parliament is that it is not a Sunday school. It's not a preschool. It is a place of debate. It is a place where there are issues of contention. You have two opposing sides. And not everything is going to be done to your liking or the way that you and I can sit here and talk cordially. There will be heated moments. Historically, you would hear of them. I mean, you look at the Lyndon Pinleys, the Sir Milo Butlers, and the uproar that would have caused, you know, in their day. The difference today is with the level of technology and communication that we have available to us. People are able to be beamed right into the House of Assembly. And so they're able to know what is going on. There were many heated arguments and disruptions in previous parliaments. But now Bahamians get to view it. And they say, oh, the children are watching. And yes, I agree. The children are in fact watching. But you and I, well, I have children. And one of the things that I think is important is that no matter what your children are watching, you have to instill in them the values that you would like to have instilled in them. They cannot get their values from a television. They cannot get their values from outside individuals if you instill those right values in them. The morals, the values, the principles of which you stand for. That is important. So don't abrogate your responsibility to someone else and say, oh, my children got bad values because they saw Loretta Butler Turner acting badly in Parliament. You know, I mean, you cannot do that because I still have to go home in all of that and ensure that my children that are mostly adults now, that they understand why I do what I do. And I do take that time to explain to my children and let them know that, okay, this is your mom and this is what she does. This is why she did what she did. And I think every parent has that responsibility.
Are there things about Loretta Butler Turner, the person, that we need to know? Because we don't often get to see you privately. What do we need to know about you?
I am a very, when I'm not in politics, I tend to be a very introverted type person. And family is so important to me. I think that that is the basis of everything that I do. I love my country passionately. I love God, and I truly depend very strongly on my family and my God for my direction. My husband, my children, my parents, my siblings, they all help to make me who I am. My grandparents were very instrumental in helping to mold me. We grew up under them, and we've always been taught the value of hard work. And so hard work has been a very important part and an integral part of my life.
All right. Well, St. Matthew's member?
I am a St. Matthew's member.
Yeah.
I enjoy nature.
Mm-hmm.
I love Long Island,
Yeah.
and I love reading.
Mm-hmm.
And, I love people. I really, really do love people. And I think that people can sense if you are a people's person.
Yeah.
And I think people would describe me as such. But I have a very compassionate side, even though I know I'm known as an aggressor.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm very big-hearted.
Yeah.
I am a very big-hearted person.
Okay. Loretta Butler Turner.
Yes, sir.
Why hyphenate your name? I always ask.
Historically, I think the Butler is very important.
Okay.
It shows where I've come from. It shows who I am as a person genetically.
Yeah.
Turner, because obviously that's who I am by marriage.
Yeah.
I think it's very important that I have both of them. I would never, the old people say you borrow your husband's name, but you never get rid of your maiden name. But it's important for me to honor my family.
Yeah.
That's how important family is to me, and to also honor my husband.
Yeah.
You have some married women that don't even use the husband's name. They continue to carry their maiden names.
Yep.
So it's really important for me because I do have a wonderful family.
Yeah.
And they're very supportive. And like I said, historically, when you hear Butler, you know that Loretta is of this lineage.
Yeah.
That goes back to the Eleuthera days.
Good people.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I really enjoyed being here.
Yeah, I appreciate that you came.
Thank you.
And you were honest, as honest as you could be.
No, I was honest.
You were honest. All right, I'll take that. Although you still ain't tell me if you want to be prime minister, and I need that answer. And you better give us that first. You could do that?
If that thought comes up, you'll be the first to know.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching Citizens Review. This has been an interview, a beautiful interview, and also this bag, aquamarine threads. Pretty.
This is Long Island straw. This bag was made especially for me by a very dear Bahamian woman who goes and ensures that people in Long Island and all of these far-flung islands get some type of economic power. Her name is Claire Sands, known as the Platte woman, the Platte lady. And I can tell you she sends me these bags all of the time. And I love featuring it because it's so indicative of the craftsmanship of the people of the islands, and Long Island in particular. So I'm very grateful to Claire, and I'm very grateful to all of our Bahamian women and men, because we have men platters as well who do these cottage industries.
Amen.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are but dust, and to dust we shall return, so you might as well say what you got to say before you did. And I think we did that pretty good today. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, sir.
We'll see you next week.